100 blank cards fill our empty universe. Welcome. This is a podcast about quickly designing card games, playable or otherwise, in about 10 minutes or less. Along with each episode will be a list of cards, so listeners may choose to write out or print up the card game discussed. Now, I don't really know where this podcast is going, or if it's even going to be like anything, so let's see. Alright, so I'm going to use a title, and that will help me design the game. So, the title is Experience Motherboards. Okay, so Experience Motherboards is going to be a card game. I'm thinking it's going to be less competitive and more cooperative. Each player, and there's going to be, let's say, 4 players. Each player starts with a hand of different parts. And each part has a title and a function. And the function is the description on the card that tells you what the card does. So in the center, there's a starting module. It just says maybe every turn run connected modules, and it has a connection in each direction. So what you do is on your turn you get to play a module from your hand and attach it in a correct spot. So each card will have connections. They could have a connection on the top, bottom, left, or right, or multiple of those. And you have to connect it so that it matches the connections on the board. So, you have to play a card if you can. If you can't, you lose. Once you play a card, you trigger whatever the effects are. So, your turn ends. The start module, which is always in the start, says once the turn ends, trigger the module. And the next connection down might say, draw a card. So that player picks up a card. Then the next player goes, and they get to attach another module. So they can either attach it off the connections from the starting module, or on the module that the first player played. So he might have, or they might have, I said he because, I go by he, him, but, anyone could be playing this game. Anyway, they play a card, and let's say they play it off the start module as well. So there was one on the bottom, now there's one on the top. When they end their turn, they get to pick which direction they run. So they can run their top action, or they can run the bottom action. So there is a disadvantage for the player who goes first. So they're going to choose to run the bottom action to draw a card, because if you run out of cards on your turn, you're going to instantly lose, because you need to be able to play a card or you lose. You know, this isn't really a cooperative game anymore. This doesn't sound like a cooperative game. I really like cooperative games. I guess, I don't know. The climate of games is sort of leans towards competition. I like games that are cooperative. It's fun to work together with other people to fight some anonymous entity that is the game. Anyway, that's getting off topic. This is now a competitive game. So on your turn, you only get to play one card, right? I'm thinking some of the modules have something like, on your next turn, you get to play 2 cards. Or, there could be, stealing modules that are take a card from the player on your left and add it to your hand. Or, draw a top card from the deck and attach it anywhere in the module. Yeah, I think this is really shaping up. Okay, I'm going to stop this now and design it. And we're back. So I'm not really sure what I put in the interlude between the first segment and this, but basically how this podcast seems to be structured is I give myself 5 quick minutes to make a rough idea. I spend about half an hour offline, off the video, to create and flesh out all the cards, and then I come back for, I'm going to say, another 5-ish minutes to explain the final rules of the game. So this game is 2 to 4 players. You could probably try more. It might even go up to 6 or 8, but it'd be very different. It'd still work. So every player is dealt 5 cards from the deck, and the starting motherboard card with connections in each direction goes sort of in the middle. And so you decide someone to go first, and each player takes a turn. So turns are broken up into 2 different segments. There's playing a card, and then there's following a path. So start of your turn, you have to play a card from your hand onto the board. To play a card, it has to match the connections on the card. So every card will have lines on it in certain directions, either 1 or 2. And you have to place it so that 1 connections are attached to 1 connections, and 2 connections are attached to 2 connections. You can't rotate the cards. The text always has to be facing the same way as start. So it adds a little trouble. Some cards become hard to play. If you can't play a card at the beginning of your turn, you lose. The second part of the turn is following a path. So you pick one of the 4 paths at the start, and you move down the connections and to the different cards, if any, and complete the text. So you don't necessarily have to pick a path with any card. So at the beginning, the first person might play draw a card, and they would want to go down that path because you want more cards so that you have more options to prevent yourself from losing. However, if they had played something like give a card to the player on your left, he would pick one of the empty paths, so he doesn't have to perform that action. Now the next player also gets to play a card, and then they follow a path, and so on and so on. If you are faced with multiple choices in a path, like in this start, you get to pick which way you go. When placing cards, you can't make a closed loop. So, if two of the paths are leading together, you can't play a card that connects both of them such that you could go around infinitely. That sort of adds an element of strategy. You can purposefully block off paths so that they can't be changed. Alright, so there's all of that. If you can't perform an action on a card, you also lose. So cards that say draw a card are really good at the start, but the deck has a limited number of cards and it's eventually going to run out. If that deck runs out, you can't take a draw a card path without losing. Other cards like steal a card from the player on your left or right, that's really good, but if the player on your left or right doesn't have any cards, you lose. If a player has lost, they are sort of removed from the game. So a player on your left, if there's a 3-player game and the player on your left has lost, the new player on your left is the other player who hasn't lost. You don't just try to draw cards from someone who doesn't really exist anymore. If you had any cards when you lost, they're also just sort of gone. And the game goes until everyone has lost but one person, who is the winner. Yeah, I probably have to come up with a better name than Experience Motherboards, and I guess that'll be the title of the video, but we'll see what that is. I hope you enjoyed. There's going to be a list of cards in the description below. Thanks! This podcast was made by me, H.R. Gilhuly. Music is Lost in Faltering by Eric Matyas, www.soundimage.org. Comments, questions, or suggestions for my next prompt? Email me at fillouremptyuniverse@gmail.com or at me on Twitter at @faux_universe. Or talk to me in person as we huddle together in the dwindling warmth of a bus shelter, weathering the rainstorm that just won't let up. All of this can be found in the description below. Thanks for listening!